Ubisoft just lost 95% of its value in 5 years. And in the last week alone, 6 games were canceled, 7 got delayed, and studios are closing with hundreds of people getting laid off. Today we're breaking down how this happened and what comes next for Ubisoft, because there's a Chinese mega corporation about to swallow up what's left, and that might mean the end of a handful of legacy games as we know them. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Sav, this is Sav Plus, and on this channel we dive deep into all things gaming. If you enjoy the content or the format it's delivered in, let me know in the comments and click subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Let's get into it. So let's rewind back to 5 years ago. Ubisoft was still riding high from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Rainbow Six Siege had become a live service juggernaut, Far Cry was still reliable, and the future looked pretty solid. Then everything fell apart. Star Wars Outlaws launched in August of 2024 and was supposed to move 7.5 million copies. They revised that down to 5.5 million just before launch. It ended up ranking 47th in Europe for the entire year, not just for Star Wars games, but 47th overall. That's a catastrophic failure for a Star Wars game with Ubisoft's marketing budget. And to make matters worse, when it flopped, the CEO actually blamed Star Wars for being in choppy waters, not the bugs, not the mediocre stealth mechanics, not the fact that it tried to do everything and excelled at absolutely nothing. Nope, it was Star Wars' fault. Then there's Assassin's Creed Shadows, originally supposed to launch in November of 2024, delayed to February of 2025, and then delayed again to March of 2025. Finally came out last March, almost a year ago now, and it clearly didn't save Ubisoft because here we are watching the company implode in real time. X-Defiant got canceled pretty much right after launch, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora underperformed, and their back catalog sales, the old reliable money from older games, just dropped off a cliff. Every live service game stopped making the same money they used to, and gamers just started picking up on the fact that every Ubisoft game started feeling the same. Climbing the same tower, revealing the same map, clearing the same camps. The whole formula just became kind of a punchline. And people got tired of the buggy launches, always online requirements that didn't work half the time, and the overly aggressive monetization in games that we already paid $60 for. The trust between the developers and gamers just completely evaporated. And when players lose faith, they stop buying your games. It's as simple as that. People vote with their wallets. And you can't say that we haven't been warning Ubisoft about this very problem for a very long time. But now I'm gonna hit you guys with some numbers, but bear with me because they paint the full picture of just how bad this is. In January of 2021, Ubisoft stock was 80 euros per share. Right now in January of 2026, it's 4 euros. The company lost 95% of its value in just 5 years. After they announced all these cancellations and closures, the stock then dropped another 39% in a single day, their worst trading day ever in the history of the company. To put that in perspective, Ubisoft was worth $11 billion just 8 years ago in 2018. Today, they're worth around 600 million. They've lost more money than most game companies will ever be worth. This year alone, they're projecting a $1 billion euro operating loss. That's money just vanishing. Revenue down over 300 million from what they predicted, and they're burning through $400 to $500 million in cash. And that's before all these canceled and delayed projects. The market is just screaming that Ubisoft is done. Investors have zero confidence that this company can turn it around, and I gotta be honest, I think it's probably the end. So what is Ubisoft doing about it? Well, they announced something called the Creative Houses, which is basically splitting the company into 5 separate divisions that each focus on different types of games. Creative House 1 gets the big 3, like Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry. They're calling these games the annual billion-dollar brands, which is optimistic considering their recent track record. Creative House 2 handles multiplayer and live service stuff like The Division. Creative House 3 does single-player narrative games. Creative House 4 gets fantasy worlds, including the mythical Beyond Good and Evil 2, which we'll get to in a minute. And Creative House 5 is mobile games. So each division runs independently with its own budgets and creative control. And the idea is that by decentralizing the company, it'll fix the everything feels the same problem that's been choking the company for such a long time. And they're also firing a lot of people. 200 headquarters jobs just gone. The Stockholm studio completely shut down. Halifax studio closed literally weeks after it was unionized. That's either awful timing or suspicious behavior. I'll let you decide. Developers are reporting anger and despair internally, and they're trying to cut 500 million euros in costs over the next few years. Now on paper, this looks like Ubisoft is in survival mode, and this could work. If you focus on what makes money, kill all the dead weight, give creative teams actual freedom to make the games they want to make. But there's a massive problem. Ubisoft has completely lost the ability to actually ship games. And here's where it gets really interesting. Ubisoft says that they're releasing 10 plus major games between 2026 and 2027. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. Apparently, the Splinter Cell remake has been in development since 2021. Apparently, they're using the Snowdrop engine going back to linear stealth missions inspired by Chaos Theory, which is exactly what fans have been asking for. The original director even came back in December after leaving the project in 2022, but it's been radio silent for years, and with everything else getting delayed, 2027 seems more realistic than 2026. Far Cry 7 is supposedly coming, codenamed Project Blackbird. Rumor is it's hitting Switch 2, which could be the first Far Cry on a Nintendo console since 2006, but it's been internally delayed and nobody's seen anything concrete. Ghost Recon is potentially switching to Unreal Engine 5 and going first person, which would be a departure from Wildlands and Breakpoint. It could be great, it could be a disaster, more likely a disaster because it's Ubisoft. And then The Division 3 is in production, the executive producer calling it a monster that'll match the impact of the first Division. We'll see. But it's now competing with Ghost Recon and the other multiplayer projects for resources, so who knows when we'll actually see it. Then there's Assassin's Creed Hex, which has just recently been announced, which looks like some occult or witch trials themed game. And then a rumored Rayman remake for late 2026, Rainbow Six Mobile launching next month, Division Resurgence is supposed to hit mobile this year. And then there's Beyond Good and Evil 2, which deserves its own section because holy crap. Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been in development in some form since 2008. The current version started in 2017. That's 9 years on this version alone, 18 years in total. The original director, Michael Ansel, retired in 2020, and the creative director, Emile Morel, tragically died in 2023. This game broke Duke Nukem Forever's record for longest AAA development back in 2022. That's even longer than Skull and Bones. And it's still going. When Ubisoft canceled Prince of Persia after 8 years, everyone just assumed that Beyond Good and Evil 2 was dead too. But apparently it survived, and they're calling it a unique proposition in the open world adventure market, direct quote. And it's now part of Creative House 4, so either this game is genuinely almost done, which seems impossible given the chaos, or Ubisoft is trapped in a sunk cost fallacy. They've likely invested so much that they can't pull the plug on the game, or maybe Creative House 4 just desperately needs a flagship and this is all they've got. If this game releases before 2028, I'll be shocked. Now let's talk about who's really going to end up owning Ubisoft. Back in 2018, Tencent, a Chinese mega corporation, bought a 5% stake in Ubisoft to help them fight off a hostile takeover. Fast forward to November of 2025, and Tencent just invested 1.16 billion euros for 26% stake of Creative House 1, the division with Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, and Far Cry. And here's the crazy part. That $1.16 billion investment is bigger than Ubisoft's entire market value right now as a company. Think about that for a second. Tencent bought a quarter of one division for more than the whole company's worth. They essentially own Ubisoft's most valuable assets for less than the entire company used to cost. And rumors keep popping up that Tencent and the Guillemot family are talking about a full buyout, the Guillemot family being the owners of Ubisoft. The CEO of Ubisoft is denying it, but those denials don't mean much when your stock is down 95%. And here's what's probably going to happen. Tencent waits for the stock to drop even lower, maybe another 25 to 50% from here, and then they make an offer that the Guillemot family can't refuse. All cash, take it, or watch the company die. The creative houses get absorbed into Tencent's massive portfolio, and Ubisoft becomes yet another subsidiary like Riot Games or Supercell. And the timeline is probably somewhere between 2027 and 2028 if things keep heading on the trajectory that they are now. That November investment is looking less like a partnership and more like Tencent setting up its own hostile takeover disguised as a rescue. Okay, so now let's get to the game that everyone is interested in, the Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake. Internally, it's called Black Flag Resync. Ubisoft Shanghai, yeah, the same studio that spent 11 years making Skull and Bones, has been rebuilding Black Flag. They're using an upgraded Anvil engine, modernizing the combat to match the Origins Odyssey Valhalla RPG style, and reportedly cutting out all the modern day sections, so you're just going to be left with pure Edward Kenway pirate action. I gotta be honest, personally, I'm not a fan of the RPG style that Assassin's Creed has gone the past few years. I like the more traditional Assassin's Creed with the more realistic sword fights, but I mean, that all comes down to opinion. Either way, this should be the easiest win imaginable. It's a total layup for Ubisoft. You're remaking one of the most beloved Assassin's Creed games ever made, the story's already written, the characters are already iconic, and you've got proven gameplay systems from recent Assassin's Creed games. Naval combat that people loved. I mean, What could go wrong? Well, according to insider Tom Henderson, this game was literally days away from going gold for a March 19th digital-only launch. We're talking the first week of February, they were supposed to be finalizing it. Then the restructuring hit and everything got delayed to fiscal year 2027, which could mean any time between April 2026 and March 2027. Ubisoft says it's about meeting enhanced quality benchmarks, and Henderson seems to think it may have been full of bugs. Here's the reality. If your game is days away from going gold and you suddenly need 6 to 12 more months of development, something has gone catastrophically wrong. I mean, the marketing had already started. They registered the domain blackflagresync.com back in December right after the Game Awards. They've been uploading the Black Flag soundtrack to YouTube, and the voice actor for Edward Kenway had even teased it last year, but none of that means it's safe, because here's the thing, Ubisoft just canceled Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake after 8 years of development. 8 years! And they just scrapped it. That's multiple studios, endless delays, and they killed it anyway. If they'll cancel Prince of Persia after that long, I don't think anything is safe. They can cancel anything they want, including Black Flag, even if it's almost done. So is this restructuring going to work, or are we watching the company's final days? I mean, one could argue that if they're killing all the useless projects and they're focusing on what makes them money and using Tencent's money to sort of keep the company afloat in the short term, they might be able to survive this. But it's gonna take a couple of bangers down the pipe, and they're gonna have to nail these games that they're working on, because if they flop, I think Ubisoft is done. And I'm not even sure they can see the writing on the wall at this point, because they're out here announcing AI features while canceling beloved franchises, which shows that they're chasing trends instead of making great games. So it's likely that Ubisoft will not be around 3 years from now. So here's my prediction for the next 2 years. The Black Flag remake comes out in late 2026 or early 2027. It makes a little bit of money, but doesn't fix the bigger problems. Splinter Cell and Far Cry 7 release somewhere in 2027 to some okay reviews. Beyond Good and Evil 2 either gets canceled quietly or stumbles out in 2028 to nobody really caring, and then Tencent makes their move. Stock hits 2 or 3 euros per share. They offer 2 to 3 billion for the whole company, a fraction of what it used to be worth, and the Guillemot family takes it because the alternative is filing bankruptcy. Ubisoft, as we know it, ceases to exist, and the company that created Prince of Persia, Splinter Cell, Rayman, Beyond Good and Evil, and Assassin's Creed becomes just another logo on a Tencent loading screen. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when you chase live service money, play it safe creatively, and let budgets explode while losing touch with what players actually want while over monetizing your games. This is a huge slow motion collapse, and we're watching it happen in real time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Can Ubisoft turn this thing around, or is Tencent buying them pretty inevitable? Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into the gaming industry, and I'll see you guys on the next video.
Dusk till dawn, I turn my speakers on. Why they wanna play with the king? I told them meet LeBron. There's darkness in my city, wrong moves, and you won't see the sun. They be talking loud, but never been where the creatures hunt and bleed for this dream. So why your eyes